Hi guys, it's Brian here at the Peace of Eden Homestead, and although it's still snowy out, it's finally coming to the part of the season where we can get to do some neat projects. And today we're going to start tapping some maple trees and hopefully get a whole bunch of maple syrup this year. Last year I did a few. This year I'm hoping to get quite a bit more. I think I got a little under a gallon last year. I'm hoping to get at least double that. We'll see how the production is. But I guess the first question about about making maple syrup is, when do you start? What time of year do you start start tapping the trees and make maple syrup? And to answer that, there's not a specific date. I'm here in northeastern Michigan, and I know a lot of places down south have been tapping their trees for a week or so, but it took a little longer to warm up here. And basically, the way you do that is it needs to be above freezing during the day and then below freezing at night. And that's when the sap first starts flowing on the in the trees, and that's a good time to start. You can see here that the the snow on the roof is starting to melt, and it's dripping a little bit off the icicles. The icicles are getting smaller and smaller as each drip comes off, and that is a good time to start. It's nearly 40 degrees today, which is the warmest day we've had lately. And then at night it gets down below freezing, so it's the perfect time to start tapping the trees. Another big question that people have, I had too when I first started, is how do you tell what trees to tap? Well, there are several types of trees that you can tap for sap, um, but what we're going for today is maple sap. Um, After the maple sap has run its course, then would be time to tap birch trees and make birch syrup. You also have black walnut trees you can tap, butternut trees, a lot of different things. But the great thing about maple trees is they have a very high, or at least um, compared to other trees, they have a very high content of sugar in their sap. So this is actually a pretty good sized tree. It is, well, from here to here is probably, 18, 20 inches in diameter. And if you come around the other side, you see that it has another smaller tree, maple, coming off of it. Now, a lot of times maple trees will have this greenish gray lichen growing on them, and that's a good way to decide which ones are maples. The larger trees of sugar maples have this coarse, rough bark. It's kind of a grayish brown, and there's some green. I don't know if that, I think that's moss growing on it. And then if you look at a younger tree here, the bark is much smoother, but still has the platelets growing on it. And still has the, sorry, the light's not that great, still has the green moss growing on it. If we come around the other side of the tree, um, there's a little bit of the gray lichen starting to grow on it, and it's growing right out of the same root system, or I'm not sure if it's the same root system or if it's a separate, like a separate seed grew there, and then it has another little offshoot. But we're only going to tap, we typically only want to tap larger trees, at least as big around as a 5-gallon bucket. So if the diameter were smaller than a 5-gallon bucket, you probably wouldn't want to tap that tree. Once they get older and bigger, it's safe to tap them without doing too much damage. Here's another sugar maple that's growing by the woodshed here. And you can see where we tapped it last year, that hole is almost completely healed in. Actually, this one was from the year before last, and this one was from last year. This is just starting to fill in. So you don't want to use the same hole, and you don't want to put them too close together. So if you look at this again, you have the shaggy bark, the white lichen, and the green moss growing on it, and that's a good way to identify which ones are maple trees, because obviously there's no leaves and it's so high you can't really see the branches very clearly. But the way the branches grow are, it'll have a stem come up, and then it'll have two opposite branches coming off that stem, and then it'll continue, and then two opposite branches. So let's see if we can zoom in enough with this camera to see that. Right there you can, right there you can kind of see that growth habit, and you can see it on, oh, you can see it on these branches as well. So anyway, those are helpful in identifying which ones are the maples. It's best if you can go out in the summer and find some maple leaves. I'll see if I can find one here at the base of the tree. But it's best if you can find the leaves in the summer and keep track of where your maples are if you're not able to identify them on site. Okay, it's a little bit worn out and slightly decayed, but here is a maple leaf. They're often a little more broad than this, but this is a maple leaf. You can see a good representation of a maple leaf on the Canadian flag, and that's a good way to tell in the summer what they look like. Now, something that I'm going to do this year is something I would never normally do to a maple tree, but we had an issue with a tree falling very close to, here, let me switch the camera around. Okay, so we had an issue with this tree right here falling very close to the house. The whole house shook when it fell. It doesn't look like much from here. I'll go to the other side so you can get a better view of it. But there are lots of trees very close to the house. Let's see, this one's even touching the house. We have lots close to the outbuildings. There's that maple tree. There's another maple tree. And there's another maple tree. Lots of spruce up there. Anyway, being that we're so close to Lake Huron, we get some pretty high winds. And those high winds make these trees go like crazy, moving in the breeze. And we've had tons of them fall over. Here's one that fell over on this shed here. Fortunately, it was small enough it didn't do any damage, but that one's going to need to be taken care of. There's one down there. You can just see it. The base of it's there. It comes up at an angle and got caught up in another one of these trees. And this one here fell and knocked down our picnic pavilion here. So that's going to need to be fixed. And this one here is the one I showed you from the other side that fell and just barely missed the house. It actually hit the pipe coming out of the artesian well there, but fortunately didn't break it. And it fell right next to the house, shook the whole house. And if that had just been a few feet over, it would have done significant damage to the house. So that being said, I'm planning to take out all of these trees that are so close to the house and the picnic pavilion, because all these trees could fall right down and hit the house, or from over there hit the house. And those ones there could fall and hit the barn, and those ones there could fall and hit the barn. So my plan is to clear out a bunch of trees to keep the house and barn and other outbuildings safe. And some of those trees are going to be particularly difficult to take out without taking the buildings out, but I'm sure I can do it. So anyway, I hate to take down healthy living trees, but with the winds and the safety of the house at hand, I'm going to have to take them out. And since I'm taking out some maple trees that are really close to the house, normally you would only put one or maybe two taps in a tree this size, and one or two in this one. Since these trees are going to come out anyway, they're going to die anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put a bunch of taps in each one of the trees that's close to the house and basically tap the life out of it. And what that'll do is it'll help the wood to be drier. We plan to use the wood to mill into lumber. Hardwood maple is a valuable lumber. So anyway, I'm going to put more taps than you would normally put in the trees that are close to the house. The ones that aren't endangering any of the buildings, I'm going to still stick with just the one tap per tree rule of thumb, because we want to keep those ones healthy, and these ones it doesn't matter, and we may as well get as much goodness out of the tree as we can before it dies. So now that we established which trees to tap and when to tap them, we have to go with how to tap them. Now, when I first got here, I bought this tap at a hardware store because I just wanted to tap one tree and practice and get the process down. And I bought this one tap. I think it was about $7 or $8 for the tap. It has this little detachable hook that you can hang a bucket from, and the tap goes into the tree like this, and you can hang your bucket from the hook. And that's a pretty expensive way to go. And so I decided to make my own taps, and I had some 1/2-inch copper pipe laying around, and I just cut a notch here and bent the end together and took that notch and folded it up to make a hook. And then I took the other end, cut a V in it, and bent that together to make a angle that can go into the hole that you drill. So this one goes in like this, and then the container slides over it and hangs from that hook. So I'll show you that once we get the tap in, but first I'll show you how to drill the holes. All right, so here we are at the first tree we're going to tap of the year. This one is real close to the barn. Got a bunch of windows stacked up there for our greenhouse project. But this one, like the one out by the house, has two main stems. Since we're taking this out, we'll put more, but last year I put two in this side and one in this side. But this year we're going to put several in each of them since this tree's coming out anyway. So let me show you how we're drilling the holes. Okay, so what we're using here is just a cordless drill and then a 1/2-inch spade bit. Sorry, 9/16 spade bit, which is the right size for the 1/2-inch copper pipe that I use to make the taps out of, or they're actually called spiles. But anyway, so when you go in, you don't want to be level with your drill. You want to be slightly uphill, some uphill at like a 5 or 10 degree angle. And then I'm going to drill in just about 1.5 to 2 inches, which happens to be about the depth of the spade on the bit. And the bit's stuck, sorry. There we go. So the spade on the bit is about 1.5 inches or so and that's enough to go in deep enough for the spiles. Now what I like to do then is to blow out the debris from the hole and clear any of the bits and pieces in there and get a nice clean hole. Now one thing I really notice here is that the sap's not flowing yet, so hopefully it's supposed to be really warm for the next couple of days and cold at night. But we're gonna go ahead and put the spiles in and get it tapped, hang some buckets, and then we will wait. We'll play the waiting game. All right, so here's that hole. I went ahead and drilled some other holes, and I can see that the sap is running just very slowly. So to tap this tree, we're gonna put the tap in there. Just press it firmly to get it in place. Normally I just hold it while I tapped it with a hammer or a stick or whatever, but since I'm holding the camera with one hand. So once it's in there, I'm gonna tap it to seat it. And once that's seated pretty well, we can hang a bucket from it. And you can see, if you go from the side view, how it's actually pointing downhill a little bit. Now I see, over using this last year, that little hook on the top bent forward a little bit. So I'm just going to use my hammer to bend it back up, and then we'll get the bucket on it. I'm not sure if this will show up on video very well, but you can see a drop of sap starting to collect in the spile there. So it is actually running. It's just running very slow. When the flow starts picking up, it'll be like drip, 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 really fast. But for now, it's just very slowly building up that drop of sap. I'm going to touch it and see if I can show you that run out on video. So that is the sap coming out of the tree. And we just need to collect that sap and then boil it down. So you can have all sorts of elaborate systems with hoses and stuff that go to tanks to collect your sap. Here I'm pretty low key. I just take an old milk jug, cut a hole in it. I just use my pocket knife to cut the hole in it. And I leave that flap to keep stuff out of the bucket. And then I just take the bucket and I slide that flap over the hook, and I hang the bucket from the hook, and you can see that little flap is covering up the top of the tree to keep any dust, or the top of the spile to keep any dust or anything. And now when it's flowing, a whole gallon will fill up in less than half a day. So I usually come out at least 2 or 3 times a day to empty these out. First thing in the morning, because it flows a little bit at night. The production isn't that huge, but then during the day when it starts warming up, it starts really flowing. So you got to be on your game to get out here and pull the sap. I see this this hole I drilled on the other side of the tree here is already dripping down the tree. This one is on the south side of the tree, so it's running a little faster because it's warmer on the south side of the tree where the sun hits it. So I'll hurry up and get a spile in there, get a bucket hanging, and I actually drilled holes all the way around both of these trees to get this one. And again, I normally would only put 1 or 2. This is probably about 24 inches in diameter, and the other one's about the same. I would only normally put 1 or 2 spiles in each one, but since these trees are coming out this year anyway, it's not going to hurt anything, except the tree, which is going to get cut down anyway. It's not going to hurt to put more than just the 2 taps in. So we'll get that, and then hopefully tomorrow we'll have enough syrup to come back and show you the boiling down process. All right, so we have the jugs hanging from the taps all the way around, or the spiles, whatever you want to call them. I had to clean and sanitize some extra jugs and prep them because some of the old jugs from last year were a little rough around the edges, so I decided to get some new ones. Some of the ones we used for water and stuff around the house. But anyway, they're all going, and started collecting just a little bit of sap. I'm gonna pull that jug off from the first one I put in, and see how much sap we've collected in the last half hour, 45 minutes. And I'll show you what we got. So this tap here is one of the faster running taps. It's dropping out a couple of drops every few minutes, or maybe not a few minutes, but every 30 seconds or so. But that's as fast as we're going right now. Hopefully tomorrow during the heat of the day it'll be running a little faster. So for this video, I'm just going to show you what we've got so far, and it's not much. I'm just going to take this sap jug and pour what I've got into this little mason jar so you can see it a little better. Now, it's almost completely clear. After it runs for a while, it will be completely clear, but there's a little bit of sawdust and stuff. We filter that out before boiling it down. But if you taste it, let me show you what that's like. All right, so this is the sap we have, and if you taste it, it's just basically like water. There's a tiny sweetness to it, but not a whole lot, and that's why it takes 40 gallons of this to make 1 gallon of maple syrup. So probably I'll make another video of collecting all the sap and boiling it down to maple syrup so you guys can see the rest of the process. But that should get you a good start on collecting your sap for the year. And hopefully we'll get the next video up real quick about how to boil it down. Thanks for joining us here at Peace of Eden Homestead. Just love the peace and solitude out here, and I love doing these projects. It feels good to have some warmer weather so I can actually get into some projects. And boy, we got a lot of projects to do this year, and hopefully you'll follow us along as we do them. Thanks a lot. Peace, togetherness, and love.